welcome to another broadcast of The Soul of the Everyman on the ArtistFirst Radio Network. All past shows are archived and can be picked up at ArtistFirst.com. Here they are, Michael and Margaret Lyons.
Thank you very much, C-Man, and yes, I am Michael Lyons.
And I'm Margaret.
She's Margaret, and you people are you people, and it's going to be one heck of a show tonight. Because they always are. And I'd already thank Z-Man, but thank you very much again, Z-Man, because, without your consummate professionalism, we would have no idea what we're doing. And we don't have much of an idea what we're doing in any case. But tonight we have a very good show on tap here, once we can get the studio door closed. It came up sort of as out of a discussion we were having, out of a video we were watching, since during these days of great synchrony with the gods of the internet, we basically spend all of our time watching videos anymore. And so we were watching our favorite Eckhart Tolle there. Are you all right over there?
Yeah, I'm fine. Why?
Well, there was we were watching our favorite, one of our favorite philosophers, Eckhart Tolle, who's a wonderful person. If you've ever had a chance to watch any of his videos, and I'm sure you have because he's somewhat famous, he every word he says, you wonder, what will the next word be? Will he start swearing out loud? Because he's so calm, and he's got this volcanic sense of humor which occasionally peeks out, but he's got it pretty well locked down all the time. But Tolle is really a giant among the folks who have sort of become part of the zeitgeist of our times, of be able to kind of have insights on where we are. And some of the things that he was talking about, he actually was talking about, in essence, in a different context, how life is a challenging thing. Life is something which presents you all the time with problems. And the insight that he had, and he actually blamed this or credited this insight on a book by M. Scott Peck, which is, it's The Road Less Traveled is the name of the book. And he said, I read the first few lines of the book, and then it was such an incredible insight that I just stopped. It's wonderful. I stopped contemplating, and I didn't even have to read the rest of the book because this was such a profound statement that I felt I didn't need to read the rest of the book. But it is a very profound statement because it literally looks at life and turns it around from the point of view of perception, of people's perception. Much of what Tolle was talking about was that life is challenging, and that when life challenges you, you feel angry or sad or depressed or why me kind of pops up in your head, and shouldn't it be going this way, and now I'm angry because I have to do this, and this guy's frustrating me, and this situation is, and all these things snowball. And what Tolle did is he said, well, you have to separate them. First of all, you have to say, well, there are life things that happen which actually are situations which you have to deal with in the now, which are troubling, and life is both ups and downs, and we tend to think of life as being all ups, except when these horrible people do these things to us to bring us down. But in fact, he said you have to separate out and say, well, these things are truly things that are happening to me right now that are challenging, whatever it is. I have a bill that I can't pay, whatever it may be. And then he said there's all the other things which is really the way the mind reacts and says it shouldn't be, and therefore because it is happening to me and I don't think it should be, then I bring in stress, and I bring in worry, and I bring in worrying about what will happen and what has happened, and dwelling in the past and dwelling in the future, and really making, one would say making, magnifying your troubles by dwelling upon them. And he said all that is under your control. Almost half of the things that life challenges with you with, if you break them into, are the actual things, and then they're you spending all this time worrying about the actual things that could happen that didn't, or the things that have happened and you can't change, but yet you're stewing about them. And so he had this. He brought this up in his talk, and then he referred to this wonderful book by M. Scott Peck, which is The Road Less Traveled, and this phrase, which in the very beginning struck us too, and this long-winded introduction is really just so I can talk about the quote. Do you want to read it? You're much better at reading these things than I am.
Okay.
She's a great reader at these. I just kind of stumble my way through them and stutter and do things. So I'll shut up now.
Oh my. Okay. Life is difficult. This is a great truth. One of the greatest truths. It is a great truth because once we truly see this, we transcend it. Once we truly know that life is difficult, once we truly understand and accept it, then life is no longer difficult. Because once it is accepted, the fact that life is difficult no longer matters.
Exactly. And it's something which you read, and if you read it quickly, you say, oh, well, that's just trite, or it doesn't mean anything. But if you read it a little more slowly and you think about what he's saying is that in essence the problem that confronts most people when they think about how difficult their life is that they are expecting it, and Tully brought this up too, they're expecting it not to be difficult. And the fact that it's difficult is an offense, or it's something which it becomes an opportunity to say, but why me? And to compare yourself, well, this one has a life, and this one has a wonderful life, and this one has a wonderful life, and why am I so afflicted? Why am I being persecuted? Why can't I have the easy life that these people all seem to have?
It's the grass is always greener complex.
Exactly.
All you're doing is looking out and believing that it's always better someplace else and not here and not now.
Right. And there's that, and then there's the whole idea of somehow you're doing it wrong, that others will,
But that's the baseline of the complex.
Right.
When you're entering into something, whatever the situation is, and that the mindset of, well, it's not going to go well. It's always going to go wrong. And I'm going to look for what it is that will validate my statement that it's going to go wrong.
Well, that's even a third thing, But even just taking it, sort of tabula rasa, you walk into a situation and something bad happens, and there's a part of you, sort of a very natural part, which it feels offended that something went wrong. This guy is out to get me, or the airlines are always late, or they're always dumping. It instantly goes from my perfect little life is being ruined by, name it, and pick your victim, pick your
issue,
your villain or your issue, and you immediately do two things. You make them into a villain, or that thing into a villain. You make yourself into a victim. We've talked about that a little bit, and you spin all your energy into fighting against the issue, and then wondering why it's happening to you, and it happened so many times in the past. And it's just as you said, it's going to happen in the future. You walk right in and you say it's going to go bad. You're already living in the future of negative.
But the base of that is life is difficult, and accepting when you see life all around you, you will always have some problem, some issue. But whether or not you take it down the negative road or not is really up to you.
Yeah.
Your mindset will always, this is happening. Well, if you understand, you really understand that stuff happens. Life is difficult for me equals stuff happens.
Yeah.
And it's not always good and it's not always bad. It just happens. So to hold that mindset of observing it before you begin to classify it, because the minute you classify it from your personal viewpoint, then in the back of your head, it's like, oh, good, I have something to complain about.
Well, you've jumped right to the end, and that's true. We can start at the end. That's the right way to approach it. You know, the right way to approach this is to turn yourself into, number one, say, like you said, stuff happens, and there are other euphemisms. Life is difficult. Really, even the statement "life is difficult" is a little bit too negative in one sense, because it's the wrong statement. But people start there: life is difficult. But the conclusion, after you accept that life is difficult, it's no longer difficult. That sounds like a paradox, right? But it's not, because it gets you to what you just said: is you're no longer a something that's either being attacked or that somehow is being left into this bliss. You're now the observer, and you're saying this moment, you're living in the moment. This moment, I have a challenge. I will do what I can to mitigate the challenge, to address it. But at the end of the day, it's an ephemeral thing, and the next moment, sometimes almost the very, very next moment, it's suddenly better. So that's the dealing with it portion.
It's being alert to the mindset, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. The mindset when you engage in life, and you understand that the stuff around you does not go always in your favor, always stuff flowing your way. It's just not the nature of things. But there is a part of you, and really I believe it stems from when you were a child, that life is good, it's exciting, and then suddenly stuff's happening and it's not so good.
I wanted to say this. She said something. They said three things there that were very interesting. I think that as a child, I think we have this inherent idea that life is fair.
Yes. Oh, well, we love goodness. All you have to do is talk to any child, that fairness is the major issue.
Or turning it around, that was unfair.
Mm-hmm.
And so in our child hearts, and really I think in all of our hearts, we have a sense of fairness, but it's a misplaced sense of fairness, because in truth, I would say that fairness is between people. And life, we kind of anthropomorphize it. We make it into a person that's coming after us, or somebody that's benefiting us, that's being nice to us or not being nice to us. But in fact, life is neither of those things. It just is. And we could say it again: life is difficult, or it's not difficult, but it's not out to get you. I think very, very, because we have this innate sense of what's fair and what's not, and we talk about people being fair and people being unfair. And I think when you have volition, when you have free will, yes, you can be fair and unfair because you're deciding. Life and all the things around us, the things that are part of our environment, are not really thinking about us. And that's also kind of a bad thing, because you think, well, everybody's got to be thinking about me. What do you think about me? In fact, life is kind of impersonal. It just happens. Diseases happen. Cancer happens. Accidents happen. People are mean to you without even thinking about who you are or what you are, but you instantly turn it into the story of they're out to get me, and they're always out to get me, and everyone's always out to get me. So this kind of personal specialness that we hold very near and dear to our heart, we also think that everybody sees that we're special and is just out to get us. And it's very natural. It's a very natural thing to think that when life is difficult, that somehow we're being persecuted. But in fact, it's just difficult. And that's the insight that is at the heart of this. And it's also, I think you mentioned, it's at the heart of a lot of great philosophies. It's the heart of Buddhism, is when Gautama realized that all life is suffering. But I think encapsulated within that is that in all life is suffering, you still have to say that life itself is not the suffering. It is within that realization that you realize also that you have the ability to not take in the suffering, not become the suffering. realize that it's just there. It's just happening. It's just part of that moment, but it's not you. So
It's the tendency that whenever you have a problem or something goes against you, the belief that someone is judging you, like it becomes really personal, and it's like, well, you suddenly become something to be pushed away, to be separate from the rest.
Ostracized.
And and the truth is, it's not that at all. Not to take it personally, which is a natural reaction when you are looking at things from your ego-centered viewpoint.
Yes.
You will always translate it into some kind of reflection on you. In other words, an insult or a compliment.
The word is reflection. It's exactly that.
Mm-hmm.
You in impersonal circumstance, you find the reflection. They're out to get me.
Mm-hmm.
Why are they doing this to me?
It's just understanding that is stemming from your I viewpoint. And when you shift it outside of you, then you can begin to see perspective of what's actually happening. And that habit form of being able to translate your I-centeredness and how it all relates to me to what is actually going on out there. And how am I to read this?
You get to decide, right?
Mm-hmm. This is where you
should expound on that. Exactly. This is the power part.
This is where the core of your being and your consciousness is. What am I to read from this? Understanding that what you're doing is just like an observer. You're reading a book. You're not the story that's being unfolded in front of your eyes, but you are reading it. You're partaking of it. You're imaging it. But it's not you. So to be able to translate that, to understand that you've got to be able to come to that point of being the observer, being the reader of the story that's unfolding. Mm-hmm. Whereas there's a lot of people that want to be the story that's unfolding. So that's where the I gets shoved into the book.
Right. But I think you also can, in being the observer, you can also be the actor. In other words, you have the opportunity to decide two things. What I will feel about it. First, it's three things, because you say you observe the thing. The XYZ thing is happening, and I don't like it. It's bad. Whatever it is, it's doing something I don't like. But you reject it as identification. It's not doing it because you're so special or you're not so special. It's just happening.
Mm-hmm.
And so that immediately puts the barrier, or it separates you and the moment. There is you, and there's the moment. And then you can say, now I see the moment clearly. This is a thing. This thing is going to do something to me. Right now it's doing something to me. How do I feel about it? I can decide that. And then what am I going to do about it in the moment? So you become the observer and the actor. But you've taken out that sort of essential, or sort of that negative component. And the negative component is encapsulated in one word. Why? Why is this happening to me? It must be because, and you spin off into the fiction, to the story.
Well, but that's what I mean. When you're reading a book, you don't, as you're reading how the story is unfolding, how the characters are acting and what they're saying, you don't sit there and say, well, that character said that to insult me. I'm the reader.
Right. Oh, that's a great point. The characters in the book are not doing it to insult you, the reader. It's very, very true. That's a great point.
Well, it's understanding what you're actually doing to yourself.
Yes.
Because at that point, you're taking on suffering. You're taking on offense. You're taking on negativity, because it's got to relate to you somehow.
Right.
so that character said that, so that must mean that he's saying that to me. That's like, no.
No, but it's so prevalent to make the situation into a personal affront, to tie it back to things that happened in the past or things that might happen in the future, to write this whole narrative and story and plug in all the people from your past or your future that might fit into it, make them villains and victims, and you're the victim, they're the villain, you're the hero, they're the terrible people trying to kill you, whatever it is. But it's all a story.
Right. And that is an interesting point, because when you think about the American Indian way of looking at this world is that we're all here to dream the common dream. When you understand that the dream is a story, each person has a story to share. And it's interesting to see how when one person is relating a story to another, okay, that separation usually is quite distinct, okay? But there are mindsets that basically want to say, well, that story is my story. You know, that's what's happening to that person is happening to me, kind of. And you're sitting there going, no. Boundaries. Who are you? And what is your story? And this is me, and this is my story. I will relate it, but it didn't happen to you, which is fine. Thank God it didn't happen to you. Some of those stories. But you can't, how do I say, you can't be the other person. You can't be me. You have to be you. So tell me what your story is.
Well, I mean, if we could sit on that for a moment. Codependent relationships, relationships where you live through the eyes of another, or you can see it a lot in offenses that, you know, if you do something to my kid, I'm going to come after you, and I'm going to fight that battle, and I'm going to defeat you, because the offense is seen as something which is against our group, all of us. We're all offended. We all have to go and destroy, you know, this thing. And rather than see it in a co-equal relationship, or in a relationship even of necessarily, you know, parent to child is still a dependent relationship, but yet you let them live their own lives, fight their own battles. You, in the sense that you and yourself are the same person, but yet people see a situation which is of the moment and ephemeral as being an offense against them and their whole life, you know, and they plug their whole past and everything that's ever happened to them into reacting. That's why you'll you know, this idea of being triggered. What you're triggering there is, it's an interesting concept, because what you're triggering is something which is a momentary event in the present, unleashes an emotional charge, and emotional charges are always from the past. So you say, well, you've triggered me, and all the whatever it is from a bazillion years ago is going to come to the fore and just roar out like a nuclear volcano, because you've unleashed this. And now this kind of reaction is toxic in both cases. But the real toxicity is that rather than deal with the thing in the moment, and which might require the power that you have to just like turn the page, you are using the power which is required to save your life, you know, the power of all your existence and everything, that all the ferocity of your life existence, that much to swat, which is in essence a fly. And so the reaction is bad for you, because you give yourself tremendous anger, stress, emotional.
You want
it's like a storm of emotion overwhelms you, takes you out of the moment, runs you into all kinds of circles, does all kinds of psychic damage to yourself for something which could have been handled by that's kind of nice, that's kind of mean, I'm moving on. and you observe it, don't like it, find a way to deal with it, which might be ignoring, it might be saying something, it might be moving on, it might, whatever it is, rather than, in essence, taking a huge amount of power from your present and using it to dredge up things which you never can change, and then, focus them on something which has no relationship to those things, and in essence do more toxic damage. Who knows what kind of damage you do when you unleash that kind of power against yourself and against others?
Yeah, you're having a cortisol response.
Cortisol response, at least at the body level, but even at the mental, psychic level, you become, you burn new pathways in your brain through these emotional outbursts, and you reinforce them. They've done studies, and you've seen these studies where they see that the negative pathways, each time they're accessed, they're reinforced, and they channel thoughts. They channel at a cellular, at a microcellular level, at a actually nerve connection level. These pathways get burned, and not really burned, but they become the
well-worn grooves in your head.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They become the way that you think. They literally change your thoughts.
And that reflects back to the very beginning of what we talked about.
Yes.
Where life is difficult. So that thought pathway is reinforcing your idea that it's got, all these difficulties are reflecting on me and who I am.
And in fact, in doing this, you are changing who you are. You're making yourself not live to your fullest life potential. You're actually
you're limiting yourself and your abilities, and the fact that you as a human being can grow past all difficulty.
Right.
The one thing that always registered in my head was that we as human beings down here, we weren't made, this physical body not made to live forever, but we were made to heal
and to grow.
And healing is key because it means that you can take a hurt and grow past it.
Right. And not only that, your ability to live in the present moment is so much more precious than living and dredging up the past or worrying about the future. You lose all of that. You limit yourself because you can't live in the present anymore. You live in the past.
Right. And it's very, maybe when we come back after a break.
Oh, let's take a little break. We'll go back. Now this will be in the present moment. There will not be any. This is a great difficulty, but we're going to get past it. See you on the other side of the commercial break.
The wait is over. First Blood, Book 2 of the Blood series is out. Your favorite bad boy thief Dev is back, and the beautiful and deadly Trey is right there with him. She is sharp, sexy, and full of surprises. Their adventures continue as a new power arises to threaten the world. The heart of creation is under attack, and time is definitely not on their side as they battle against their enemies' undead hordes. Can they unlock the hidden power that can defeat him, or will his forces draw first blood? Get all 3 installments in the series. Book 0, It's in the Blood. Book 1, Destroyer's Blood, and the new release, Book 2, First Blood, today. Available in ebook and paperback format on Amazon, Kobo, Apple, and most other fine e-tailers.
The Timeless Esoterica radio program with Dr. Bruce is broadcast on the 4th Monday of every month at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern on ArtistFirst.com. We explore topics including the paranormal, alien life, mysteries, conspiracies, hidden history, oddities, and much more. Each show will feature a special guest with exciting and thought-provoking discussion. Always keep an open mind, an open heart, live forever, and remember Dr. Bruce believes in you.
The Fat Man Gets Out of Bed is the latest book from Michael Lyons, the award-winning author of There is a Reaper. Featuring 13 original stories, this wide-ranging collection has everything. Forbidden love, gods versus demigods, weird invading aliens, sexy seductive artificial intelligence, and unusual passion between the living and the dead. All set amidst fantastic worlds of pain and loss and boundless joy. From the sublime to the macabre to the bittersweet, The Fat Man Gets Out of Bed will leave you breathless with laughter, brimming with tears, trembling with suspense. Available now on Amazon.com, Google Play, iTunes, Kobo, and fine e-tailers everywhere.
Hi, this is Hannah Ruth from the band Wild Hum. Check out our new Americana Soul CD, Wild Hum, at our website, wildhum.music.com. And you are listening to the ArtistFirst Radio Network. Thank you.
Rick Riordan fans, love mythology with plenty of action and humor? Destroyer's Blood is for you. The new fantasy novel by award-winning author Michael Lyons is book 1 of the adventures of Dev Kalian, the Blood series. Follow Dev and his magic sword Betrayer as they are suddenly attacked and forced to return to Olympus to fight in a war they want no part in. The world of men and gods is about to be destroyed by Zeus's ancient foe, and only Dev and Trey can stop him. The conflict never stops, and the amazing twist will have you on the edge of your seat. Act now while the ebook is on sale for only 99 cents. Destroyer's Blood is available on Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, Kobo, and fine e-tailers everywhere. And while you're there, get the free prequel, It's in the Blood, available for a limited time.
Thanks for joining us on The Soul of the Everyman on the ArtistFirst Radio Network. Let's get back to your hosts, Michael and Margaret Lyons.
Thank you very much, Z-Man. And life is difficult. And that commercial break was tough. No, it wasn't. It was good. And I'm glad you're back. And this is the second half of The Soul of the Everyman. And tonight's topic is we're talking about really. We started with a quote from the great M. Scott Peck, who wrote a book. This was the Road Less Traveled. The Road Less Traveled. And you might remember, of course, that there's a poem by Robert Frost, Two Roads Diverge in a Wood. And it may have been, I took the road less traveled. It may have been a little, I'm sure it was a little riff on that, but his great insight in the very first part of the book led another great philosopher, Eckhart Tolle, to say, I didn't even need to read the rest of the book. He just contemplated that paragraph, and he's been contemplating it for the last 17 years. We've been talking about is this wonderful observation of Peck's, which is that life is challenging, life is difficult. Yet his real true insight is that the way you think about life is inherent in the statement life is difficult. And then if you then say to yourself, okay, got that. Life is difficult, but it's not me. I'm going to accept this fact that occasionally bad things happen, occasionally good things happen, and neither one of them is related particularly to me. They just are things. Then all of a sudden, amazingly, life is no longer difficult. And so the bliss of life, it doesn't just come in not. It certainly doesn't come about not caring. It comes in that you realize that the challenges or the blissful portions of life, neither of which are permanent. They need to be enjoyed or mitigated in the moment with this full realization that, one, it wasn't done specifically to do something to you or for you or against you. It's not about you. That's the main. And that the thing that you have great control over is what you will take away, what you will accept. You say, yes, it's difficult. I can do something about it. Or if I can do nothing about it, then I just will do nothing about it. But it will change, and that will be good too. Once you accept this sort of impersonal, or rather extra personal. It's not about me, or it's not against me, or it's not why me or why not me. It really, the me isn't even involved. Being isn't about your I-centered I-ness. It's just about being in the moment and saying, well, it's raining and I'm sad, and I'll just be sad for a little bit and then I'll be happy. And life hands you these challenges once in a while, and you deal with them and you go on. And it leaves you in a much saner state.
Well, yeah, you basically are becoming non-reactive, so you're not getting triggered and flying off the handle the way you used to, and that takes time.
But the key, I think, people get kind of spun up in the word reactive because they say, well, I have to react. I have to do something. And that's not the point. It's not that you do nothing or that you're a yogi sitting on a mountain with saying Om all the time. People who are living with this philosophy look exactly like everybody else. They have the same concerns. Bad things happen to them. They feel pain. What they aren't doing is what Margaret just said. They're not using this as a trigger to both live in their past and plug in the victim and villain mentalities, or to be constantly living in the future of worry and what could happen and what if, and then making yourself crazy that way. The bad or good things that happen to them are just bad or good in the moment, and you say that's bad or that's good, and then you don't identify or make it about you, or put yourself in the, as you said last half hour, you're the observer and the actor. You're not the book or the story. You're reading the book, and then you're saying, I'd like to do something about what I'm reading, but I'm not in the book and offended by what's happening.
I like to look at it just the way, when the difficulty presents itself, something happens. And immediately people go into whether I like it or not. And you've got to break from that. It's like something happened. Give your mind a different task, because everyone has been trained to respond in whether I like that or I don't like that. And watch yourself whenever anything happens. Your first unspoken question in your head is, do I like that or I don't like that?
Or is it fair or is it not fair?
Well, that is all contained in that question.
Yeah.
But if you give your mind a different task where it's got to acknowledge what just happened, and when it has to acknowledge what is unfolding in front of it, you'll find that it will observe things deeply, because it's been given a task and it wants to do the job well.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
The mind wants to sit there and go, okay, this and this and this and this and this goes over here and that goes over there. It will just glass it, all the little drawers and boxes will come out. It'll take it all apart and put it in all these.
And it'll be very happy doing that.
Oh my gosh, yes it is.
The mind is very happy doing that.
Yes, but that's the thing, to acknowledge that your mind, this is an inherent function of how your mind does things. It loves analysis. It loves to look at stuff and go, this, that, color, texture, blah, 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 blah. Train the mind to acknowledge what is unfolding in the moment. Give it that task. One of the exercises we used to do is record everything that's going on. And you can get to the point when you are recording what's going on, you can actually play it back with every sense that you basically empowered your mind to use, because you have to empower your mind to use those tools. What did it smell like? What did it look like? What were the colors? How did it feel? What's their texture? Is it cold? Is it hot? You can do the whole gambit, all 5 senses and then some. And it'll record, and you will surprise yourself on how much information you are actually recording. I call that acknowledge what is unfolding in the moment. So you're taking that more than 3-dimensionally, because what you're doing is 3 dimensions over time. So you're actually taking almost a holographic record of what's unfolding in front of you.
And you're doing that in the present moment.
Yes, you can only do it in the now. You can't do that in the past, like you're trying to remember what happened. How can you? You didn't even record it, so what the hey? Now you're going to pretend that you recorded it.
Right, because the other part of it, if you don't do that and you allow it to go off into the past to grab all the things it remembered from back there and all the offenses,
all those details, it will record in the present moment. It's a marvelous thing.
Right.
It really is. If it can get your mind to really begin to function that way, it will be the vehicle by which it's going to drag your consciousness into the present moment, because it wants to do its job.
But you said something extremely important. I want to make sure that you tell your mind what to do.
Right.
So the volitional thing is that there's 3 things that happen. The event, and then there's actually 4. There's the event, and then there's sort of the gut, visceral body reaction. The emotion reaction rises up. And unfortunately or fortunately, over millennia, that emotional reaction has a tendency to drive events, drive things forward, because it was important to not be eaten by the saber-toothed tiger.
Right.
So that emotion event can drive the mind into a useful or an unuseful state. But you still have one little sliver of time in between the emotion event and what you tell your mind to do. And if you don't give it anything to do, it will run off and do something. Because the mind has to do something.
Well, you have to give it, but that's the truth of it. You've got to give it direction.
Yes.
Without a direction, without a directive, think of it as you are the executive of you.
Yes.
Okay? And you're going to give your mind the directive.
Right.
Otherwise, the mind is going to make up something.
Right. Make up exactly. And if it's allowed to do it without discipline or without any direction, it will run off and try to make a story up. Because the mind is also all about stories.
Well, it likes to identify patterns. Okay, it's part of the breaking something apart and putting it all together neatly in some cogent form. So if you can come to that point where you train yourself to direct your mind, to take it all in, act, I call it the act moment. Acknowledge the moment unfolding in front of you. And you can only do that in the now. And then once you've taken all that in, you choose the response that you will give based on your perspective. You choose your perspective, and that's based on your identity. So you look at that and you go, okay, this is unfolding. Is it about me? Or is it something outside of me? It's like if the saber-toothed tiger's coming after me, it's about me.
Right.
Okay.
Your lunch.
Yeah. So you will take action accordingly. But if it's not about you and the saber-toothed tiger that you're seeing is actually some picture on a screen, that's just playing. That's a story that's unfolding. It's not after me. It's just part of that story.
But the first step is to be in the moment. And the thing is, people short-circuit that and go to step 3 before they've done step 2.
Right. Well, just acknowledge that I acknowledge what's unfolding. And then you choose your response based on your perspective? Is it objective, where you are the watcher, observing what's on the screen or reading what's unfolding in a book, and then you consciously respond. You choose what you're going to do. And that sequence takes a lot of discipline as well as a lot of repetition. Because sometimes you're not even aware that you're in a reaction. You already went into I like it or I don't like it.
Right.
You have to kind of eject the I like it and I don't like it into 2 steps down. Because your mind has got to record without the I like or I don't like. You can do the I like and I don't like later. You never lose that.
Right.
But the whole idea is to get that mid-step in to understand that something's unfolding in a whole bunch of different ways, and I don't want to miss anything. That's what the mind does.
Well, this is an interesting topic, and we can go very deeply into it. But that sequence, the Dalai Lama has talked about it being, the present moment, being present, and Buddhism talks about being present. But you don't need to be either the Dalai Lama or a Buddhist to be present. But you mentioned it, and it's important. One of the key observations when you accept that life is difficult is that you also accept that you're not going to do it right every time, and yet if you look at what you've done in a situation where something comes up, something knocks you off your stride and takes you out and says, oh man, the plane's kind of, and that whole reactive, emotive, kind of self-destructive or taking yourself out of the moment, you can say, okay, that didn't work out so well. Let's do it a little bit more differently. Let's accept that life is difficult, and therefore life is going to happen. You can insert that, the gap that you can insert there that helps you to develop this repetitive discipline is when as you're knocked off your stride and you start to react, you realize right there, oh yeah, that's one of those life is difficult things, right? Okay, well wait, let me just, before I run off and spin off and scream at the airline attendant or whatever it is.
Breathe.
Breathe. You put a gap in there, put a little air gap, because the air gap is where you make the decision of what's going to happen next about your reaction. So even though you can get very deeply into this and get very disciplined about it, you can be just the acceptance that life is difficult gives you a little gap. You say, oh yeah, not that you're expecting bad things to happen or expecting good things to happen. What you're expecting is that things will happen, and that you always have that extra moment, that breath. You go, okay, I'm not going to yell at the flight attendant. I'm just going to say, okay, is there something I can do? No, I'm going to sit down and have a coffee. And then another thing will happen, and we'll be in a different spot. You give yourself a gap where it's not about you. It's just a thing. And it gets you to the point where you then can say, give mind instructions. Okay, just record everything, and we'll figure it out later. Or give them mind instructions. Just ignore everything, and we'll just be fine. We'll relax. You have the ability, if you give yourself the acceptance gap, it kind of, what it takes away, Margaret? It takes away this, there's an instantaneous judgment when something bad happens that either I didn't deserve this, or why is it happening to me? Because that cuts right through, bam, you're already into the reaction. Mm-hmm. Why? The why and the I and the why is already, bam, you're already through the gap, you're into the bad, into the reaction, into the I'm going to scream at somebody, the saber-toothed tiger, whatever it is. But instead you put the air gap in there, see, okay, not a tiger, not getting eaten, okay. Okay. I'm not going to scream at the flight attendant. I'm going to calm down.
I'm not going to scream at the TV.
I'm not going to scream at the TV. I'm not going to take this personally as something that's about to affect my heartbeat. I'm going to say, okay, it's happening. Okay, mind, go off and record. Okay, what can we do? Okay, I can do this. You suddenly have, in giving yourself the breath, you also have done two things. You've taken away all the victim and villain. You've taken away the I'm going to go to the moon in stress and scream all over the place, and you've kind of put yourself, interestingly enough, a little bit in control of the situation. You say, well, the only thing, the power, the thing that you can control is you. It's your reaction. It's what you're going to do next. Even if what you're going to do next doesn't look like anything, it's just sitting down and taking a breath. But it's something that you're doing next versus being controlled by the past or the worries of the future, by being blown right through into the why me? Why I me? It's all you're no longer in the moment, you're in the I. You're in the why. You're in the someone's doing this to me because I'm special. I shouldn't have this happen. I. That's where you get spun off.
You remember we talked about this before, but the minute you complain, you lose the ability. You give your power over to something else, and you're caught in a reaction. You don't get to choose.
You're a victim.
When you complain, you basically give over hope of ever finding a different result.
Right. You go immediately to why me?
Because that means you've accepted the fact that it's all going to...
and it's all a reflection of you.
Right. Instead of looking at it going, okay, what actually happened here?
Right. I mean, this also goes right to people, especially now, but all the time, people always say, well, why do bad things happen to good people? And the question is inherently flawed because in two ways. Calling things bad and calling people good. Because, in fact, you can be good, or you yourself have the ability to be good or bad. You have volition, but things don't. Things are just things. There are why do bad people do things to good people is a perfectly valid question, because people can be bad and people can be good, and people who are good don't deserve to have bad things done to them by bad people. But then it's two things which have volition. But when you say bad things, you're already making a judgment. First of all, you're identifying the thing as having the volition of being bad or good. It isn't. Your reaction to it, or your judgment or your feeling about it is what makes it bad or good. So taking away the bad things, and then you're saying, well, why do things happen to good people? And then that's right away you say, well, things can happen to anybody, good or bad. And all of a sudden you've broken the paradigm. You say, well, oh yeah, things can happen to anybody. When you say bad things, you say, oh, that's not right. That's not fair. Why do bad things happen to good people? Well, the bad things part of it. Things aren't bad. Things are just things. Childhood cancer is a thing. It happens. And you have a moment to understand that, or to put the air gap in, take a breath. But if you don't allow it, and it's very easy.
It will eat you alive.
Eat you alive. And if you've been through the fire and you've walked from one gate of hell to the other slowly, you realize that those reactions get burned out of you, or they destroy you.
Well, it's survival at that point.
Yeah.
You will either be dragged down that well-worn groove of high stress and intensity, and your body will fall apart at that point as well as your mind, or you decide that, no, we are going to function because your heart knows that love is more important right now. You're living because you are loving, and this is where you choose to put your time and your effort and your decisions. That is the foundation. I choose love and its response to someone I love who is in danger.
Right.
So I choose my response again and again and again.
Well, and at the heart of that, the love and the I choose. Why? Because the precious, ephemeral, fleeting moment, you realize that the precious, ephemeral, fleeting moment is very precious and very fleeting. One thing when you're walking through hell slowly is you realize that every moment of every day is still precious.
Yes.
And
Life is precious.
you laugh and enjoy yourself while walking through hell. Let me tell you, we've been there. You're walking through hell, and you can still laugh, and you can still love, and you can still enjoy yourself, and still be present in the moment. When people would look at you and say, how can you laugh? How can you be happy? Because you have to, or you're no longer living.
You're no longer human.
You're no longer human.
Mm-hmm. You become a mass of responses or reactions and neuroses, a mass of neuroses.
Mm.
And you have the choice, literally. Do you want to do that, or do you want to live? And frankly, you follow what the kids on the cancer ward always did. They live every moment.
Yes. And then take it out of the cancer wards. See, life, the things that happen to all of us, good and bad, are just things. And all of us, good or bad, have the ability to accept that things happen. We have this great saying, S happens. Stuff happens. It's a great thing. And this is the perfect Buddhist statement. Stuff happens. It's almost the core of Buddhist or Zen. Stuff happens. And then you, the observer, the actor, have the ability to say, yes, that happened. I'm going to do something about it. I'm going to accept that things happen. I'm going to accept that this moment might not be the most comfortable moment, but the next moment will be different. And once you just get there, and it's difficult to just kind of change your perception around, but once you get there, life is no longer difficult. Life is. And the moment is just the moment, and you're living in it. And amazingly, even slow walking through hell or slow walking through paradise or just living every moment and taking each breath becomes not difficult. It becomes what it should be, which is that you're here living in this world, in this incarnation, and it's always a brief moment because we're only here for, out, brief candle. We're only here for a moment or two. So do your work. Live your life. Accept that life happens.
Well, life is. And if we hold to the understanding that you are observing everything, peace will be at your core. And since we've reached the end of our hour,
in this moment,
moment,
it's not a bad moment. It's just a thing.
It's what happens.
That's what happens. I'm Michael Lyons.
And I'm Margaret. And thank you for listening.